Well, here on Halloween, we've got some wild statistics lately on Halloween. Listen to this. Consumers plan to spend an average of $102.74 this year, making it the first time the amounts hit triple digits. I take that back. It's the second time, 2021, it hit triple digits. Also, while Halloween traditionally has been a children's holiday, no longer, peeps, 55% of U.S. households without children plan to celebrate Halloween this year, up from 49% just a couple of years ago. And also, two-thirds of people across America celebrating Halloween. So most people celebrate it the same way. They go, they knock on a door, and they ask trick or treat, where some irresponsible adult hands them a phenomenal piece of candy. But you know what? My guest today doesn't do that. And for the past several years, we've talked to him about the alternative method he's taken, using this as an opportunity to teach kids a little bit about money, about economics, and about the value of a candy bar. Chuck Jaffe from the Money Life shows here. How are you, man?
I'm great, Joe. Always great to be with you.
Well, super to see you again. So let's go into the history for people that haven't followed this. All right.
Wait. Before we do that, Joe, let's get into an argument here because I don't know where your study came from, but my study comes from Lending Tree, and it says Americans plan to spend $169 on average this year.
169.
169 with parents of underage children spending $309. Now, of course, that includes things like costumes and what have you, but it's everything from candy. So either you're looking at old statistics or somebody didn't factor in inflation into what they're actually going to be doing. And my study's out from Lending Tree. So I'm just saying it's not me that did it, but Lending Tree came out and did it. And the point is, inflation is seriously hitting Halloween, and oh yes, it is affecting the decision making at my house when we get to cash or candy this year.
Oh man, I can't wait to hear about that. Well, actually, this is from, you've got Lending Tree, a fairly well-known site. My site might be better known, Chuck. It's trulyexperiences.com, which is the go-to site on the internet. I don't know why people go to trulyexperiences.com except as a result of a Google search. But yeah, just let's assume that my numbers are a year old and it's $102 last year, right? Let's say it's $102 last year. That's a 50% markup.
There are certain items where I think inflation affects it more. I told the story of how I go to like a remainder store to buy premium soy sauce, and I buy these little bottles of their dark premium soy sauce, which normally they sell for $1, and they're now selling for $1.29. That's 29% inflation. That's some serious stuff, even if it's not a lot of money. And I think that's what we're going to see with candy, because I have always said, when you come to my house, you get 3 pieces of fun size candy, not micro size. Kids this year are definitely going to experience shrinkflation, right? Where, oh yes, you're getting candy, but all the pieces are smaller. I buy fun size candy. You get 3 pieces. And historically, I've said that's worth about 37.5 cents. And this year, it's probably worth 54 cents if I had to think about it. So I'm saying 50 cents this year. And that's a pretty significant, that's almost 1/3. And yes, we as parents giving away candy are going to experience it. Kids, as what they get, are going to experience it. And I think it's going to make for a very interesting year at my house because yes, I have a different twist this year. And I have in my head the way I think kids are going to respond based on what we've done in the past.
Before we get to that, we're going to call that foreshadowing, because I want you to just tell people about the genesis of this whole thing for people that haven't been here with you and I the last several years.
Well, so this started in 2016, although my kids look back and go, why weren't you doing this when we were home?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, got it. This started in 2016, and part of it was a different desire. I live in a neighborhood of mostly cul-de-sacs. There's one block in, and every other street that's off of it ends in cul-de-sacs. And I'm now the old guy. Right? My kids are grown and gone away. The neighborhood is turned over. And I want to make it that I work from home. I should be approachable. I'm like everybody's emergency contact because they know I've been working from home for 20 years. So I wanted to have something where I could reach out and talk to the kids, but then I wanted to do something that's in keeping with what we do. And cash or candy made a lot of sense. And what I realized very quickly is let's have some fun and do this. And then I wish that each year I could just pass what I did last year to the neighbor on my left, because then you'd have a whole neighborhood doing different things with different financial incentives. And also, you'd get away from the idea. I will simply tell you, for anyone who decides to do this, and I totally recommend doing this. But if you decide to do it, you should understand if you're the only house in your neighborhood who's giving away cash, kids will take your cash. That's what's going to happen. But it started as a simple either or choice in 2016. You can have 3 pieces of fun size candy, or you could pick from an envelope that had a variable amount of money in it. Quickly, it became trade or treat, if you will, where you could have and mind you, this applies to kids in the 3rd grade and up. Teenies, I love them. They get 3 pieces of candy, right? And by the way, the teenies don't even need the 3 pieces of candy, so I guess I'm particularly generous there. But 3rd grade and up, and that's also a good thing for me because, again, it gives me a reason to talk to every kid who's by. Hey, what grade are you? Okay, well, make sure you come by next year when you can play and what have you. And by the way, my neighborhood is turned over. And so right now we're just getting this year should be massive because we had a ton of little kids last year who were 2nd graders. So I will have almost 20% more kids this year just from that if everyone who was here last year comes back. But it started with a simple either or choice. Then it became, hey, you can have the envelope with cash instead of candy, or you can trade me a piece of candy for a couple pieces of candy for a chance to play for bigger money, right? So in other words, you get envelopes that had 25 cents to $5, or you have envelopes that have 50 cents or what have you to $10 or whatever. And kids had chances to do it. Then we went and added things where you can trade up, but you might not get anything, right? So if you play for bigger money, great, but half of the envelopes that you're using for bigger money are empty.
You had kids playing for big money, if I remember right.
We still do. Then we added in 2019, we added a lottery element, which was an additional option. At that point, kids could trade 6 pieces of candy for the chance to play for a $20 jackpot. But there was a $20 jackpot and a $10 second prize, and everything else was empty. And I will tell you that year shook me a little bit because I had a neighbor child who went out and was waiting. She couldn't wait for everybody else to get there, so she sort of did our block, and she did everybody on my little cul-de-sac first. And she gets to me, and she's got 6 pieces of candy because my neighbors are a little more stingy than I am. Just saying. She's like, I want to play for big money. She trades 6 pieces of candy, pulls an envelope that is empty. And I know that she says, so she goes back. Her parents are like, hey, what's he doing this year, etc. She opens the envelope. I have now taken 100% of her candy. She's got nothing. I am the Grinch who stole Halloween at that moment. Now, mind you, she got plenty of candy the rest of the night. And by the way, when I say that an envelope has nothing in it, every envelope has something that explains the game. We do that, so that the envelopes feel the same, because kids will try to game any system. Oh, what's got
sure,
which?
Yeah, right.
So a winning envelope has a bill and a piece of paper. And by the way, we cut the piece of paper as small as we can. Every place else, we cut the piece of paper as big as we can to try to make it that it works out that way. And, that year I had a kid named Liam, neighbor kid. There will come, when he is someday with a family of his own, he will tell the story of how he went trick-or-treating and came home winning $20.
Wow.
So, yes, we have a lottery element. Then we got to COVID, where we could no longer trade candy. We couldn't take back anything from anybody because that would have violated the COVID protocols.
Sure, yeah.
So we brought in the chance to say, hey, I'll take 3 pieces of candy. No. I'll instead take a gift certificate for $1 or an ice cream sandwich, which is actually worth $1.35. from a local ice cream shop, which you can walk to or ride your bike to from our neighborhood. Now, that's a sure thing. And it was really interesting. And so in the COVID year, we did a lot of ice cream. Last year, we did almost none. So it was interesting. Like kids wanted the sure thing that would also make sure that they got out. Like they recognized the value of
Leaving
going
the
to an ice
house.
cream store would be so nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
last year they were out. So they were like, oh no, give me the money. Like, let me play for bigger money.
I want to hear, though, before you get too far away from this, the neighbor kid with the stingy parents who came home with nothing. I feel like there's two different ways you can say the words Chuck Jaffe. You can say Chuck Jaffe and you can go Chuck Jaffe.
Yeah. Uh, you know, the answer is she shouldn't have come to me first. If she had, if she shouldn't have gone out, gotten 6 pieces of candy and come to trade everything she had.
Yeah.
We gotta the fact is that the real value in this, aside from, hey, I get to chat with my neighbors and the parents love it and what have you, the real value in this is the money lessons we teach and the conversations we have. And there's my favorite story ever. The first year that we did a trade, I have 7 girls who come up to the house. They're all in beautiful costumes. They're all carrying pillowcases full of candy. And we're taking 3 pieces of candy to play for bigger money. The first 6 girls, oh, reach in, grab a handful, whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. I'm only taking 3. I take my 3 pieces from each of them randomly, and I put them in my candy dish. Get to the 7th girl, and she says, no, 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 I want candy. She takes 3 Snickers bars from my dish, and I say, I got to know. 6 of your friends just went gambling, and you said, oh, no, no, not me. And she goes, oh, that's easy. My parents and I have an agreement. Snickers bars are my favorite. My parents can sample whatever, my extra candy for anything they want except for Snickers bars. They will never take a Snickers bar.
So she got a guaranteed Snickers.
I watched you pull a Snickers bar from like every one of my friends here, and I knew I could take 3 Snickers bars. I go trick-or-treating to get Snickers bars. That's my biggest prize. So she actually she said, this is what I came to do. This is why it's worth my spending the money that I would have gotten otherwise. And she was right. Now that group of girls, they were like 5th graders at that point. They came back every year, and the last year that they were trick-or-treating was 2 years ago, and they made a point of, Mr. Jaffe, we will come back to you. We want you to be last. They came to me and they said, this is our last time trick-or-treating. Last year we're aging out of this. Your house is our favorite. We wanted you to be last. And then they hung around and talked money with me.
Wow.
I mean, come on.
Wow. That's fantastic. All right. This year, Chuck, what's the new game? What's the 2022 Jaffe Halloween game?
Well, we are getting rid of the ice cream, just because last year I had a lot of extra gift certificates and I don't need that. So, given inflation, we wanted to create a sure thing option. So, again, 3 pieces of candy is your base. That's your return on investment for coming to my house. You get dressed up, come to my house, it's now going to be 50 cents is basically your baseline. So, your choices are take a $1 coin, a $1 coin. Simple as it doesn't get any more complicated than that. So you can trade up immediately to get a buck. Or you can give me 2 candies to play for the chance to win between a quarter and $6. And by the way, if you're wondering why it's 6, it's because $6 would be a dollar coin and a $5 bill.
What is the value of a single fun size candy?
I would say at this point it's about 17, 18 cents.
Okay.
So at 18 cents, it's 54 54 cents is roughly your value. So that's why I'm saying, it's about 50 cents. I mean, because I'm always buying my candy on sale and what have you. And by the way, the other benefit of doing this is that I can buy less candy. I actually spend less on candy because I get candy in trade now that we're able to go back to trade.
Well, so wait a minute. So the dollar is an instant win for them. Is clearly an instant win.
But the I can trade. Think about what you're actually doing. You're going to be getting between, I want to say I've said it's a quarter. It might be 50 cents. It might be 50 cents to $6. But even at 50 cents, you're actually trading me for nothing better and for no real improvement, right? You're just getting, you're getting cash, and the average envelope there is going to be worth a little bit more than $1, but the chances are you're not going to do any better than the $1.
Yeah.
And then it's trade me 5 pieces of candy for the chance to play the lottery. 50 envelopes, 2 winners, $30 at stake, 20 and a 10, which means, by the way, that the average is 60 cents, right? $30 spread over 50 envelopes, the average is 60 cents. But you had $1 that was a sure thing. So that's a huge part of it. Do you take the risk? The biggest risk has the biggest cost, because you're not only giving up the candy you would have gotten, but 5 pieces of candy means you're on the hook for 90 cents to me. Right? Thanks so much for giving me the candy that I didn't have to buy for somebody else. Right?
Let's talk for a second about kids and money in these conversations, because the thing I love about this, Chuck, is that too many parents, I think, do not want to let their kids fail with money. And I love this idea of, frankly, this incredibly low cost, just a few pieces of candy, to make a really stupid move, to do that lottery option, right? I love it. I feel like kids are going to fail anyway. Why not fail with very little money early on so that they don't make the big mistakes later?
Why not also see kids' logic? So here's a funny one. Remember I mentioned Liam, the kid who won the jackpot that year?
Yeah.
And the problem, by the way, was so one thing everybody should know. If you're taking an envelope, put it in your bag, take it home, open it at home. I don't want to know what you did. I want you to open it, talk to your parents, celebrate a win. Like, hey, I won, I won some money here, right? Celebrate a win and talk to your parents so that they know what you would do. I always encourage that. But Liam got to the end of my driveway, opened it up. I won. He's all happy. And I now know the $20 jackpot's gone. And I've got kids coming for the rest of the night that I have to tell them about the lottery option. And I know their odds of winning are now even lower.
Yeah.
But Liam comes back the next year, has the lottery option, doesn't take it. He took the sure thing.
Wow, really?
He took the ice cream. And I'm like, Liam, I got to know. Like, what? You're taking this? He goes, come on, Mr. Jaffe. Who's going to get that lucky twice in a row? Okay, you took your chance. Now, by the way, I'll point out that this past year, he played the lottery and he came away with nothing. But he's still way ahead. And so I'll be very curious to see what Liam does again this year. And again, I think that this year, the $1 option, the kids are going to recognize that that's the best one. And I think that's where we're going to see more kids going. The interesting thing is this. It's a $1 coin, which many kids have never actually seen. Right? You don't do much with $1 coin.
No, never.
You should. You should. Trust me. At some point, Joe, I can tell your audience a way that any of them that run a group, you're part of a team and you want to prove that you have an economic impact in an area or whatever, I can teach you something to do with dollar coins and $2 bills that will make people think, oh my goodness, these people spend so much money, whether you do or you don't. But most of us don't see $1 coins. But I suspect that that's going to be the big choice this year, or it's going to be the exact opposite. And everybody will go for the lottery because $20, man, I got to go for $20. Candy is free to me. And that's the other side, is that you hope that they have these lessons that, no, the candy's not free to you. You put in effort to get there. You had a return, if I do X, this is what I get.
Yeah.
Now, instead, you did X, but you changed your financial choice and you didn't take a guaranteed win, or maybe you did take a guaranteed win. I mean, think about this in all these different ways about what's happening with delayed gratification and all the rest, things that we hope that we're going to do. And parents have these discussions. And by the way, if you are a parent and you don't want to go through this, and I totally understand it, teach your kids economic lessons with the leftover candy. And by doing this, what I'm saying, and Joe, you and I have never discussed this, but I'm a huge believer. If your kids are like my kids, who are way too much candy, instead of that girl with the Snickers bars, her parents taking candy, my kids didn't need any more candy. I didn't need to eat it either. But I would come up with a deal that says, okay, I'm willing to buy this candy from you. Now, which candies, what are you going to charge me for a Reese's cup versus what are you going to charge me for Smarties? I'm not going to get into the merits of who likes which one, right? But my kids eventually knew that, like, wait, dad likes this. I can charge more for that.
Yeah.
Dad doesn't like this. He can have a whole bunch of those because I don't like them either, right? And again, that girl with the Snickers, we couldn't necessarily offer her money, but she should understand, wait, if I have something of value that they really want, that I could charge my parents $1 for. Whereas the candy that I don't like, you can take all that off my hands for almost nothing. Kids get these lessons. My two daughters would come home and my one daughter only wanted plain chocolate. And they'd start trading back and forth, and my other daughter would eat anything. So by the end of it, when my daughter, who would eat anything, had 3 chocolate bars left, my other kid was willing to trade half the sack of candy, all the stuff that she wouldn't eat, for the 3 chocolate bars. Those are economic lessons, folks.
That's fabulous. Hey, if you've got a question for Chuck, we've got a few minutes here. I've got a question from earlier from Lynn here, which is not related to the economic game. It's just your personal preference. And I think you got to be careful here. Kit Kat or Almond Joy?
Wow. Kit Kat or Almond Joy? Well, I will say that neither were my favorites when I was a child. And I would say today I would gravitate towards the Kit Kat, but I'll give a specific reason why.
Because it's better, because it's the right answer. That's why, Chuck.
No, much of my life, it would have been the Almond Joy, mostly because my now ex-wife, that was her fave. So that's what was available, etc. And by the way, if I was getting one, I was kind of sneaking it because those were her candies, right?
Somebody else wanted it.
Now it's the Kit Kat, yeah.
And then a question that I had, you've seen a lot of creative costumes over the years, these kids in creative costumes. What's any goodness you can remember that really stands out?
Well, I mean, my favorite costume of all time is actually one that we made for my youngest daughter. We made her the Wicked Witch of the East. Now, think about that for a second. What do you know of the Wicked Witch of the East?
I know the Wicked Witch.
Ruby slippers,
okay,
striped socks, and a house on top of her. That's what you know of the Wicked Witch of the East. So yes, my daughter had a witch's costume and a cardboard house that we built over her. It was awesome because it also meant that when she got tired, she could just take the one off and be a witch. But she walked in the ruby slippers, and all you could see was the feet, and people were stunned. And it was just cardboard and what have you. But we've seen a lot of things. Last year, we had the people who came as stick figures. That was really cool because as it got dark, they were amazing. So what they had done is they were just wearing black sweatpants, and they took those glow-in-the-dark sticks and they attached them to their sweats to make their bodies stick figures. And as they walked, the sticks were glowing, so it literally looked like stick figures were walking at you and whatnot. That's pretty cool. Wild. They were that one I liked a lot.
That's cool. Back to the Wicked Witch of the East, seeing as how you are in Boston, I would think you could just dress her up in a Yankees uniform and you get the Wicked Witch of the East, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you could certainly do that in this part of the world, or you could have put her in a Jets uniform or a Dolphins uniform. All of those things could have been done, but she was a that what happened was her sister had been a number of Wizard of Oz characters, and the younger sister was like, "Well, I would do it, but my sister sort of took all the good characters." And I jokingly said, "Well, what about the Wicked Witch of the East?" And she's like, "Well, that's a great idea," without realizing what she was saying, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
she's like, "Well, could we do that?" Okay, yeah, if you can think it, we can do it. So we did.
Chuck, we got you for just a couple more seconds. Tell everybody what's going on at the Money Life Show. What's happening over there?
Well, in the market conditions we have today in our business, good news is fine, but bad news is better. I mean, quite honestly, if you're trying to figure out what to do, we are an hour a day of personal finance and investment talk, and we are talking with just incredible guests. And what I will tell you is, if you listen on one day, you could be really sour to the market. If you listen on the next day, you might be going, "Oh, wow, this is the perfect time." And the important thing to take away from that is disagreement makes a market. And man, is there a lot of disagreement right now. Don't be
Mm.
frozen by it. Figure out where you want to be. What's the side you want to agree with? And it was funny. I had somebody on the show the other day who said, "Look, if you are one of those people who agrees that, okay, recession's coming, but it's not going to be that long, and I've got the right time horizon and everything else, then you can be positive, even if you're not that convinced the Fed's going to do the right things or whatever. And if you're one of those folks who's super negative, then go off and be negative. Understand, pull your horns in, be a little bit more conservative. It's okay right now, because it's much more about your emotions than it is about the market as to how much you're going to succeed going forward from here."
What do you think about this take, Chuck? That if you're one of our younger listeners to Money Life or Stacky Benjamins, and you've got a 20-year time frame, right, until you need the money, 20 years, and you're lucky enough to know that you are going to have a job, you'll have cash flow. So the things that, come along with the recession, all this world of hurt in the job market, that you're probably not going to be susceptible to those. I don't think there's any way to not look at this as an opportunity if you've got 20 years.
Well, think of it this way, Joe. Everybody right now is talking about what's called sequence of return risk, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, sequence of return risk is always explained as the idea that you're going to retire. The market is going to, as you start to have to draw on your stuff, the market's going to tank. You're going to be pulling money on assets that are shrinking. It's going to reduce your nest egg and affect you negatively for the rest of your life. And by the way, this is a thing. And I know people who are retiring at the end of this year, and I'm scared for them because they don't have a pension or whatever.
Yeah.
I know some others who are retiring who do have a pension. They're protected. But sequence of return risk works both ways. And in fact, it's the exact opposite for someone who is young. In other words, somebody who's in their 20s and 30s right now, if they are saving for retirement and the market were going gangbusters, it prevents them from accumulating so much, and it might mute their retirement for the rest of their lives. But if, as they start saving and they're putting money away, the market goes down and they are therefore able to buy more shares, dollar cost average in at better prices, etc., it sets them up better.
Yes.
You are 65 right now. What everyone's talking about is that sequence of return risk. It's real and it's in front of you. And by the way, I talk about it on my show all the time because it's the risk that scares me. But if you're my daughter's ages, 31 and 29,
Yes.
right now, sequence of return risk is working for you. Lean into it, because this is going to determine how comfortable you are down the line.
I totally agree. Less about the market and much more about your own timeline that's important. Everybody wants to talk about what the best thing is, the worst thing is now. The worst thing is not knowing when the hell you need the money at a time like now. Because I think if you know when you need the money, then the which half of the Chuck Jaffe guest sideline you're on makes a lot more sense. It's the Money Life Show with Chuck Jaffe. We just got the Halloween show with Chuck Jaffe. Chuck, thanks for hanging out with us again, my friend. Good seeing you, brother.
Yeah, if you still just only want to talk to me about Halloween, have me back like the day after Halloween, and we can talk about how it turned out.
She, Karen literally just wrote in our chat. She's like, okay, we've talked about it like 30 times. She said, I just put him on the calendar for April. So you are coming back at the very least in April.
Okay, well, then I will hold my water and we'll just kind of revisit. No, no, if we do that, we'll be talking about Halloween in April. Still doesn't help me.
All right, Mr. Jaffe, great talking to you.